Dominator's ship is bigger than Burrows's because it is bigger than these way balls.
Oh, shit. Here we go again.
Yeah, here we go again indeed. I am doing another one of these videos as the first for the new year. Anyway, months before the last year ended, I binge-watched Wander Over Yonder. Crazy show, and let me tell you, the concept of taking the sizes of objects in that show in every angle, keyword, every angle at face value is even more crazy. I also had to watch all the episodes, and that statement you heard at the start is that very reason. I mean, I defended Dragon Ball Z characters from Jenny XJ9, so I am going to do something similar here. I'll also be using Edgeworth as my avatar. As for what I think of Wander Over Yonder, what I will only say is that my favorite moments of the show are specific parts where Hater is on screen. But that isn't the topic for this video. I am going to have to go against not the story, but the scale of objects of the show, more specifically how people overestimate their sizes, which in turn overestimates the power of the characters and objects. If someone were to tell me that the planets in Wander Over Yonder are the same size as planets in real life, I am going to tell that person,
"You're a liar."
And I'm going to prove it. Here it goes. Starting with the very first planet or planetoid object, in the very first episode where it zooms into the pyramid, which is not close to the size of the Great Pyramid of Giza, let me make that clear, because people like to do that for a lot of fictional franchises that show pyramids, like with My Life as a Teenage Robot. The Great Giza Pyramid is the biggest pyramid on Earth in real life, so this pyramid in the show is minuscule compared to it. Sure, the placement of this pyramid, aka its location, doesn't stay the same, but let's assume that it's in a crater. Even at that, this moon-like planet is literally not that big, not even close to a noticeable asteroid in real life. Heck, even if the pyramid was as big as Giza's Great Pyramid, that being 230 meters by 146 meters, and scaled it to the moon-like planet appropriately, then that makes the length of the moon planet's diameter 12.5 of those pyramids, aka 2.875 kilometers. But since the pyramid in many shots shows the height from the bottom to the base of the top, which makes up 18 of Hater, and he is approximately 6 feet or 188 centimeters, that makes the height 33.84 meters, and its length, which is 27 of him, being 50.76 meters, which makes the moon way smaller than what I previously set it at. 634.5 meters in diameter. That may be a lot of surface area in square meters, but here's a reminder. Converting meters to kilometers is not the same as converting square meters to square kilometers. The following episode does look like it has a location that has a wider diameter, but that still isn't saying much. In the second episode, or second segment of the first episode, it takes place on this planet, which looks like a traditional Arabic style or Persian style city, which is pretty much the only thing present on this planet, is one city. Also, the city on this planet has its surface as a circle rather than a sphere, unlike other planets in other episodes. Don't tell me that this planet that offers one city is the same size as a celestial body in real life, because I know that's a lie. Even other Earth cities in real life are bigger than this. So even a city like ancient Luxor would have a bigger surface area, let alone current Luxor. Also, a little reminder, when measuring the length of Sylvia with her documented 10 feet long, keyword long, it refers to the length from her nose to her tail. She's 10 foot long rather than 10 foot tall. This planet in another episode called Bingleborb again shows a small planet, and all the length of what we see with this planet is, again, all the planet has to offer. It is a small planet with literally small creatures living on it, except the princess for some reason. Honestly, people, do you really expect this planet's radius to be as big or bigger than the last one I showed you? Probably more or less. Maybe I could tell you that this planet's surface area is 3 square kilometers, which if that was the case, the planet's diameter would be 1 kilometer long. 2 kilometers in diameter would give this planet's surface area 12 square kilometers. If you can see the characters on the hill, how far would I see myself down the damn road in my neighborhood from a camera on the other side? Do you know how big 1 kilometer is? Given Bingleborp, even a diameter of 1.5 would be generous. Do you know how much you can fit into a square of 1.9 square kilometers? Another planet that is apparently more or less than, if not equal to Bingleborp, goes for this other quote planet with a shopping mall. You can take a good look for yourself to see how big the mall is. Let's go to Season 2, the episode called From Emergency Front Fract. This planet only has a pizzeria with slides leading to ball pits outside. Another Season 2 episode, Bad Neighbors. This planet is literally just the size of a small suburban neighborhood. You could say that it has the same surface area as one neighborhood. This planet may be even smaller than Bingleborp. I mean, even me showing a map like this would be overdoing it. And now for this episode called The Date. What does this heart-shaped romance planet have to offer? Well, it has one restaurant, a single amusement park that looks like it only has a few rides on it, and another spot with hills called the Exclamation Point. I am going to assume it is on that spot on the south side, or probably on the other side in the middle. With all of that space, if it had the diameter of 1 kilometer, that is a lot of surface area to have a park with a Ferris wheel and a restaurant. You could also say that it's as wide as 3 Bingleborps. In the episode called The Party Animal, this planet has one city with some buildings populated with small creatures, making this a small city planet. It is undoubtedly smaller than the one shown in the episode titled The Night Out, which I will also talk about soon. Now let's look at the scale of the planet called Funulon. This one is very interesting. Undoubtedly, this planet is an amusement park. Not to be confused with Planet Coaster, that is something else. Back on topic, I am going to assume that the surface area of this planet is the same size as an actual amusement park. To put that in perspective, a single Six Flags park would be between 150 to 300 acres, which on average is 250 acres, which is barely a little bit higher than 1 square kilometer. But if I were to put that surface area on a sphere calculator, the radius of this planet, if it did have the surface area of 250 acres, aka 1 square kilometer, it would be approximately 0.2, I repeat, 0.2 kilometers, which is 0.4 kilometers in diameter. A planet like that would be 400 meters in diameter. However, if we were to square off the faces of this planet like a cube sphere, giving it 6 faces and every face is 250 acres, making the complete surface 1,500 acres, which is a surface area of 6 square kilometers, and to put the surface area of that number into a sphere calculator, it would have a radius of 0.6 kilometers. That's still nothing compared to the size of an actual city in real life, even with a surface area of that many acres. The diameter of a crater on Deimos is larger than this. So you could say that this planet is at least 1.3 cubic kilometers in volume. And now we come to one of the craziest episodes from a scale perspective, Secret Planet, which shows both large and small planets next to each other. The best way I can measure anything is to start with the main small planet, and that is when the bulldozer tractor is shown with the statue, and how the statue is shown with the circumference of the planet shown. Again, I am trying to be generous by scaling the picture of that tractor down the way I did. If we use the measurement of an average bulldozer, let's say 4.3 meters, and if it was like this, then approximately 25 bulldozer tractors makes up the diameter of the planet, which is also 107.5 meters in diameter, or 53.75 meters in radius. That makes it smaller than Funulon, undoubtedly. Seeing all these planets from this show make me think of the planets from the game called Outer Wilds, or even Astromine. Check out those games. The planets in those games literally remind me of the planets in this show. Also, in this shot, the diameter of the larger planet behind it makes it the length of 23 of those planets. So with my calculation of the size of the secret planet, The larger planet is approximately 2.5 kilometers. If you use this shot, then the planet is 32 or 36 of them, which makes it 3.44 kilometers to 3.87 kilometers in diameter. If I ignore the bulldozer, the biggest and realistic length I can give the secret planet is 500 meters in diameter, because that is apparently the size of one of the specific planets from Outer Wilds, Timber Hearth, the starting planet. Which, if that was the case, that large planet behind the secret planet is 18 kilometers in diameter. To be fair, with the larger planets shown here, there are times where there are other planets / bodies that are as large as an actual biome, but honestly most of the larger planets have only one biome. Not all of them, but ones like the bigger crystal planet, which appeared in the same episode as the one with the pizzeria planet, and they even show distant horizons. But speaking of that, let's take planets like these, so I'm going to tell you people to put them in a set and
please remember this for later.
And even then, if you took a bunch of the planets from the show and combined their surfaces all into one planet, you barely get something close to the Earth. Barely the size of a country even. Let's go to the Stray and see how this planet works. Well, just by looking at it, there is only one town, with the rest of the planet being a wasteland.
You sure we're heading the right way, Fuzzball? Cause we just left the only town on this entire planet, so...
Then another example of planets being just large city size, like the one shown in The Night Out, you can get a good look of the planet. There's the set of buildings on it, and you can clearly see the curvature of the planet along with the buildings. So once again, this planet is the size of a large cyberpunk city. And even if you get a closer look at the buildings, they are only standard, common, multi-story building size. And these buildings are not, I repeat, they are not Blade Runner level in size, not even close. One thing people like to bring up when it comes to power is speed. But whenever it comes to combat on a planet's surface, it never matches the traveling speed. I won't deny the existence of FTL jump speeds being in the show. However, it gets even more inconsistent when we get to the black hole. And not just any regular black hole, it is one that is about a centimeter in size and can be stopped with a finger plugging it. If you saw characters going at warp speeds, you would expect them not to get pulled in at all, even before they are past the event horizon, although Wander does pull himself out. I'm guessing that this is the black hole that Ryder mentioned, and that all he had to do was plug a finger on it. Now people, don't get the wrong idea. When I am talking about the sizes of the objects in the show, it's not like the logic of Hater's ship, which is in fact bigger on the inside with all the rooms compared to the outside. Because even though the outside doesn't match the inside, the size of the inside of his ship doesn't change. But the outside of his ship does occasionally, which I will bring back up soon. Another thing used to scale power is one feat, or should I say alleged feat, of Hater having the potential to blow up a sun with a missile, which is taken from the episode The Good Deed. Here's the issue. It blew up only Hater's ship, which didn't incinerate anything else, not even the remains of the ship, which means either one of two things. Either Hater's ship is overpowered in material stronger than the sun shown in the episode, which doesn't incinerate the ship's parts, and the missile can only destroy this star. Either that, or the four characters overestimated the potency of Hater's missile. But to be fair, let's assume that Hater's missile does blow up the sun in The Good Deed. Keywords: the sun in The Good Deed. This sun specifically is what it could blow up. So let's measure this sun or star, whatever you want to call it. In this shot, we get the closest look of the sun, and we see Wander jumping in front of it. Apparently, Wander is 3 feet tall according to this Tumblr post, and when compared to with measuring the banjo. However, to make it more fair, for this sun, and since he is in front of it rather than on top of it, I am going to bump it up to 5 feet. I am also going to assume that this orange spot in this shot is the core. So if Wander's silhouette in this shot measured 5 feet of the core's size, and with 22 of him making up the size of it, that makes this core 110 feet in diameter. The sphere in Las Vegas has a bigger diameter than this. That means if this orange spot is the core, it is 10 million times smaller than our sun's core. I repeat, smaller than our sun's core. Not just our sun, but its core. 10 million times smaller. With all of that being said, now is the time for me to go over the main course of this video. Dominator's ship. How big is this thing really? Because again, the reason I made this video is to tackle this. Someone out there literally said, quote, "At its smallest shown, it is the same size as Boros' ship."
Yes, he actually said that.
That is a shockingly unbiblical statement.
That is by far one of the hardest lies I've ever heard and read when it comes to the sizes of fictional objects. Some people really like to immediately overestimate the ship's size when it is shown above certain planets, and I'm using the term certain very strongly. Despite the fact that they disregard the planet sizes in the show, so they just take the bigger than many planets statement at face value, as if the planets in the show are the same size as those in real life, which I have already shown that is not the case. Let me give some examples of when the ship is shown compared to the sizes of shown planets. But before I do that, let me bring up something using Hater's ship as an example. Looking at a specific scene in The Rider, here you see Hater's ship, but then after it chases the characters, it flies above the planet from behind. So is Hater's ship really half the size of the planet? Or is this just a visual representation? For people who use the visual representation statement as an argument, I want you to take that thought and
Please remember this for later.
Another thing that people may say is, it's obvious that it's inconsistent. If you say that, you do realize that it reinforces my point that Dominator's ship is in fact not that big, right? In fact, I am going to go over the times we see Dominator's ship with other things. Here is a chart that I made. For every different size shown, it will be categorized. So let's start with the first episode of the second season. We get a good close look at the ship, along with its drill and the planet the characters were on. Rather than talk about the ship, I am going to talk about the planet. This planet is not that big. Might as well be the same size as King Kai's planet or something. Sure, based on the perspective it may fluctuate, but most of the shots for the planet still make it not that big. Even if the planet's radius was 2 to 3 times bigger than King Kai's, that still puts the ship's size in this episode as large building level. Let's go to Showstopper. In this episode, Hater sets up a stage on a planet that is populated with nothing but bored rabbit creatures, and the planet is once again unbearably small. Even when we account the size of Dominator's ship and scale it with the stadium itself shown here, if the stadium size in this shot is also true, the ship is once again large building level. Not joking. If you go search the average size of a music stage, you get something like 30 feet wide. In fact, let me say if I gave the width size for the stadium, and I'm going to be extremely generous here, if Hater's stadium was 40 meters long, and her ship is 15 stages wide, then it would mean that her ship is 600 meters wide in this shot. So once again, Showstopper, large building. Episode 25 of Season 2, we have Family Reunion. We see Sylvia running from, over, and around the ship. Looking at their sizes, they are close to the windows, so this puts the ship at regular building level. Episode 20 of Season 2 is a similar result, Bad Hatter. It makes another short appearance at the beginning of this episode. We see it chase Hater's ship, but up close when it flies above the two main characters, it is just another standard building level. In the episode titled The Rival, here is a more appropriate size comparison. Here we see it with Emperor Awesome's space limousine. We can also see its size compared to the top section of Dominator's ship, once again putting the ship's size at a considerably large building level. You could say that the ship itself can be as big as a giant pyramid, however, still not exactly a real-life city level. And now we go back to the episode Secret Planet. This is literally the only time Dominator's ship is shown to be at its largest, and also the only time it is ridiculously huge in its size compared to the planets. where the main planet is smaller than the other ones. You remember how I measured them, right? But at the finale episode, End of the Galaxy, when it is above the same small planet, it's... What the? Did the ship get smaller? No doubt, first it makes the secret planet look like a speck, but now the planet is half the size of the ship. But in a different shot, the ship is the same size if not less than the planet. Remember what I said about Hater's ship being above a planet in The Rider? When I said the ship looks bigger as in half the planet's size when it is above the planet? Shouldn't we apply that same logic to this episode of The Secret Planet? However, I am going to come back to this episode. Let's go a few episodes back. In the episode Robomechabotatron, which is just a few episodes before End of the Galaxy, here Dominator's ship is above the chicken planet and... Wait a minute. Let's go back to when this planet was first shown, in Boy Wander. Why is Hater's ship shown at a larger scale in this shot? Mark that as an inconsistency. Anyway, as for the Robomechabotatron episode, not only is this ship not bigger than the planet, but also when it transforms, it looks like it is just another building level in size when you see it sitting down next to the other buildings. To further show it, look at the size of the characters with the actual Robomechabotatron craft, with the characters standing next to the feet. That is regular building level. Remember what I said a while ago about larger planets with distant horizons? Let's go to the episode that shows Dominator's ship above a planet that is just like those. That episode is called The New Toy. As you can see here, Dominator's ship does not eclipse the size of the planet's surface, nor horizon. It is above that volcano-like hill, and you can see her standing right in front of the drill. You can even see the watchdogs flying around and behind the drill as she fights them. This again puts the ship at a mere building level. Since I used plenty of examples from when the ship was shown, you cannot, I repeat, you cannot accuse me of cherry picking. Let me tell you people what should be the appropriate assumption for the size of Dominator's ship. If you were to tell me that her ship is as big as an Imperial First Class Star Destroyer from Star Wars, which is the exact inspiration for Dominator's ship, then I would believe that. The Imperial Destroyers are about 1,600 meters long, or 1.6 kilometers long, and the interior size is kind of similar to what you see on the outside of Dominator's ship. Remember what I said about Funulon being possibly 400 meters in diameter, or my speculated highballed 1,200 meters? Then so yeah, if that's the case for most planets in the show, then Dominator's ship would be bigger than planets like Funulon. Also, let's say that Bingleborp is actually 2 kilometers in diameter, which would make the heart-shaped planet 6 kilometers wide, which the planet is just as wide as Dominator's ship in that scene. On top of that, let's say that the size of Dominator's ship, size shown in The Secret Planet, wasn't an exaggeration. Let's say that the measurements I gave for the Secret Planet and the bigger one behind it were accurate, making that bigger planet 3.87 kilometers in diameter. That would be big, right? But guess what? That ship size still doesn't touch a city like Dallas in real life, much less actual planets. You know what else this ship's size doesn't touch if the size of the statue matched on the planet? In this shot right here? Boros' ship. You know why? Do you know how big this ship is? Because they actually tell you the measurements of length and the width of the ship. And guess what?
It's over 9,000
meters by 15,000 meters, which is 9 kilometers by 15 kilometers. So in actuality, the guy that said Dominator's ship at its smallest is the same size as Boros' ship is completely worse than backwards. In truth, Dominator's ship at its biggest shown in this episode, which is not the average size shown, is half the size of Boros' ship, which on top of that, the only way for her ship to be bigger than Boros', albeit slightly, is if we were to double the sizes of the planets, putting the secret planet at 215 meters in diameter. Only then would it be almost the same size as being slightly bigger than Boros' ship at 17.4 kilometers. On top of that, if we used a mean calculator, which means average, and used the 500 meter calculation for the secret planet, making Dominator's ship 40,000 meters, but added the lengths of the other episodes and set the regular building levels to 800 meters, which by the way is a massive highball because that is the measurement of the Burj Khalifa, and set each large building category appearances to 3,000 meters, you get approximately 6,000 meters. Checkmate.
You lose! Good day, sir!
And now I am going to measure the next major plot object that is more easy to measure with a clear, close perspective that people should not overestimate, which is the biggest proof that the true size of Dominator's ship is ironically not that big. And that object is the drill. The freaking drill. Before I talk about how big it is, what you can say about the ship's drill is that it was the main tool that Dominator used to drain and destroy every planet. That includes planets like this one with distant horizons, as I mentioned before. You can also say that the reason why nothing ever dared to fight back, or why nothing was capable of fighting back, is because none of the characters showed or invested in any resistance against the threats that attacked. In other words, character incompetence, and yes, I do have the evidence to support this. Roll the clip.
Major threat? You used to be one of the worst villains around, a true galactic terror. What should we do?
I don't know, man. All this heavy stuff is really bumming me out. Hey, who's up for pizza?
I want anchovies!
Half pineapple!
No pineapple!
No wonder Dominator was able to take over this galaxy.
Now, in order to show how big the drill really is, we have to get a closer look at the drill to find out. And I do literally mean closer. The moments we get a close look at the drill is when the characters are standing right next to the drill. The first time is, once again, the first episode of the second season, The Greater Hater. They literally use the drill as an escalator to get into the ship. Then the next time we see it close up, yes, I have to use this episode again, is the new toy. I'm gonna have to repeat myself. Dominator is standing next to it, with the watchdogs flying around it, both in front and behind it. Also, in this shot, the drill is not even the size of a house. It barely makes up the size of my bedroom. And finally, the last episode, The End of the Galaxy, where it is jammed up into the main control room. These three stitched shots are where the drill's size is at its most realistic size, unlike in other angles. Before I get to my next part, if I were to ask you people how big is the drill, and no, I am not talking about the height of the drill, aka length, I am talking about the wideness of the drill, the width, the radius/diameter size of the drill, at least from the point of view in this room. Now here's what you could say about the guesstimate size of the drill if the ship was as big as a Star Destroyer. Now I already admitted that it can destroy Wander Over Yonder planets. Keyword, Wander Over Yonder planets, not real life planets. And you could say that the drill is as thick as a house, and I would agree, but if you were to tell me that the drill is the size of a city, or heck, Boros' ship, then that is a lie. A massive lie. Let me measure the drill at its closest perspective. Now apparently, Lord Dominator is 6 feet tall. This would make the drill around the segment 70 feet in diameter. This ship, nor its weapons, do not eclipse that of Boros's. Not even close. To think that people out there believed that it would be bigger than Boros's is baffling that they literally did not take the time to measure anything. Even back then, years ago, I saw a bunch of crazy people saying that Dominator could one-shot Saitama. I knew for a fact that could never happen in an actual fight. Because even before Saitama lost all his hair, he could turn his head faster than light speed. Light speed goes about 1 foot per nanosecond. So Saitama turned his head to the mirror to see the backside of his head before the mirror could reflect back, showing him turning his head. In conclusion, don't lie about the size of objects and take shots of general objects at face value, especially not with cartoons like Wander Over Yonder, since things in that show, including the object sizes, are 100% abnormal. So if you want to give a scale to something, make sure that you actually measure it first next time.
So get off your damage control, accept the facts, and deal with it.